Alright, guys, welcome back to another DO6 video. Hopefully you guys have been enjoying the game as much as I have. It's been a blast going back and, you know, learning back your character, all the tech and all the matchups, you know, stage combos, all that. You know, we've had the game for a good while now, about 3 weeks. Some people have it longer than that, but you know, we've had enough time to kind of like dissect the game and kind of understand the mechanics a little bit better. I mean, we're fresh off a final round. That was hype as hell, by the way. So you know, we got a little bit of I guess an idea of how the game works in high level play and all that. But yeah, this is going to be a little bit of a different video. You know, I'm just here with the game, just playing as I'm recording. So I basically just want to go over all the new mechanics, you know, everything that was introduced for DOA 6, and kind of talk about like how it affects the game, you know, and what people have found and how useful it is in the meta, you know, how the meta in general has changed. So that's kind of what I want to do here. I of course have a few notes here because again, none of this is pre-recorded, so we're going in raw, boys. But yeah, that's basically the idea with this video. So there have been clearly a few mechanics that have been I guess you could say more controversial than others. But yeah, we're gonna try and go over all of them. And you know, the one that is on everyone's mind, let's just start with good old Fatal Rush. So yeah, we'll get there, don't worry, we'll get there. I have a lot to say about this, but you know, I'm trying to get through all of them. So yeah, let's start with Fatal Rush. So Fatal Rush, you know, it's pretty interesting. As you guys might be aware, every character has access to a Fatal Rush attack. I believe some may change in speed. I don't know if all of them are 18 frames. You know, for Janley specifically, it is 18 frames. And I will say that one of the things that I kind of wish it was changed, or that they would change up the mechanic, is that these are only -12 on block. Me personally, I would make it that like the Sidestep Attack, for example, which is -15. I think that both of these should be -15 on block, because you know, you can't even punish this with a 12 frame throw, right? You can only get a 10 frame throw. So like, I think that that's a fair change, you know. And similar to like you saw there, one of the things that has been kind of difficult about adapting to Fatal Rushes, like people already barely use them. At least in neutral, sometimes in stun, but like as you see right there, like for Janley specifically, it's like a new animation, the first hit, right? But for characters like Christy, like hers is her old 9p from DOA 5, right? And that's weird to me, because I see that I'm like, oh man, that's -1, but no, it's -12 in this game. So that's kind of something that has been a little bit weird to adapt to, you know. But again, that's part of like getting used to it, to the game and everything. And you know, some characters have had moves like that completely repurposed. Like Christy doesn't have that 9p anymore. It's just that now. So yeah, that's that for that. You know, it has various utilizations, like it puts you in the new type of stun for this game, the fatal stun, where you know you can only get out of it if you break hold. That's all fine. Some people have been saying that it's like, oh man, if you don't have meter, like all of it is guaranteed, like you're just gonna eat this for free, right? I mean, that particularly, like look at that, that's 27 damage. That is nothing. Like that is garbage, right? And similarly, like for example, getting a hit and a subsequent like launch from the Fatal Rush, it doesn't necessarily scale your launch or your combo damage. It's just that the move itself doesn't do a lot of damage. You see right there, it does 18 damage, A counter hit 6p does 22 damage. So, you know, for like launching things like that, you're not getting that much guaranteed damage, in the sense that the damage is reduced somewhat, like by 10-20%, right? So like in comparison here, for example, something like, you know, a quick stun where you launch and the opponent has like a single gas to get out of it, and then in comparison, like doing a fatal rush and then doing it, like, see, the damage is somewhat reduced. So that's something to kind of get used to as well. But in general, I think the mechanic is pretty good. You know, some characters like get to launch and then combo into it. Janley specifically doesn't get to do that. He gets to do it against lighter weights, but it's like, it's not optimal, so you don't have to do it. So yeah, that's fine and all, but it's not necessary. You know, other characters have better utilizations for the mechanic. For example, like Janley himself, again, you take this check to wall. From a dragon gunner, for example, at the wall, you get it for free, right? So again, you go into character specifics at that point, but that's more so related to character balance and not so much about the mechanic itself. So, you know, Fatal Rush in and of itself, it's pretty good. I like it. I think it's a good addition. It's not an auto combo that enables you to just do crazy stuff. It's an auto combo with utility that you don't use for its raw damage, but for its setup potential, you know, to bait out the break hold and all that. And of course it works as a sidestep punish, but we'll get to that. And you know, as we were talking about fatal stuns, that leads into another thing, which is all characters, well, actually no, not all characters have a particular move from the move list, past moves that have changed properties, but a majority do have a new move that gives them a fatal stun. For those not aware, you can't perform limbo stuns and sit down stuns anymore. Those are gone. They have all been substituted by fatal stuns. Limbo stuns can still be acquired by certain characters, but they're very specific, as sidestep punishes and stuff like that. But you know, a majority of characters do still get the sit down stun in this form. But this comes at a cost. So for example, every character that has a move that is able to that's going to cause the fatal stun is unsafe now, at a standard of -13, right? So for example, like this is pretty bad for Janley in specific, because you know, this used to be a guard break, used to be a plus I believe it was +2 guard break, so it's pretty good, right? You don't get that anymore, and it's unsafe now. But similarly, like Christy over here, like she has this move as her fatal stun, right? And this move used to be safe, and it used to give her a guaranteed critical burst in DOA 5. That's -13. So that's fantastic, you know. I didn't even get the punish there. Oh no, I did get it. I just have it set encounter. But yeah, so you know, that's pretty good that it's normalized between all characters. And normally you're going to be using this, like say you get like a counter hit and then you go for it. You're not going to be using these much in neutral specifically, unless they have like a purpose outside of, you know, just being used for the stun. So for example, like here with Janley, say, you know, they wake up with a low kick, you get that for free. That's another thing that got fixed from DOA 5 actually. This move, well, as you can see right there, that it's AROK and it's supposed to evade lows. This move got hit with lows all the time. Like it was so easy to just knock him out of the air from that, and now it's just clean. You get that for free every time, right? So some fatal stuns are gonna have some uses like that, while others won't. And then you go into specifics even more so. Like for example, moves that used to cause sit down stuns, for example H+K, you know, that doesn't happen anymore. Oh, let me take reaction off. There we go. And instead, for example, if you were to catch someone like crouching with a counter hit, it gives you the fatal stun, right? So there are certain moves that cause the fatal stun in a situation like that, but again, character specific, not related to the mechanic itself. So you kind of have to look for those, know when to use them. You know, you've used as a counter poke against someone like Brad. He uses a lot of lolz. You know, that can work out. But yeah, I think fatal stuns are a good idea. Again, some people are saying like, oh man, you get so much free damage off of them. Like it's crazy, and it's like, you know, this is no different than like gently doing a sit down stun DOA 5. You know, that's about as much damage as that did, and now you have a chance of getting out of it with the break hold. So it's not that bad in my opinion. But then, you know, transitioning from that into the break hold itself, break hold is pretty interesting. It's pretty good. You know, it's the first, I guess, conscious use of your meter, the new meter system. Oh, one thing that I actually forgot to mention about Fatal Rush is that, for example, let's just deplete all this meter. Some people said that you gain meter really quickly in this game, and that's partially true, because, for example, always zero now, take that counter hit off. As you see right there, I'm doing like a regular combo or whatever, you know, just basic stuff. I didn't even build half a meter there, right? And it was already filled by like 10%. If you do the math, that combo did almost 20%, maybe a little over 30%, right? 20, I mean, sorry, 30. But you know, by that math specifically, between like between taking damage and dealing damage, you're not going to build a full bar in an entire round. Very rarely you would do that, and that's where fatal rushes also come in. Fatal rushes build the most amount of meter out of all moves. For example, if I were to do this, I build nothing. If I do this instead though, right, that's a bunch of meter gain. So that's another move, another use that fatal rushes have, and is building meter quickly. You know, it's not so much related to the meter building quickly, it's more so you knowing how to utilize your fatal rushes and utilizing them often. You know, if you're someone that wants to keep the resources full. But I forgot to mention that. But anyways, going back to break hold. Yeah, break hold is pretty good. It's pretty good. So this, by standard, will counter everything, as you all guys know. And at a standard, will leave you a +5. This is universal for characters. Some characters, I believe, are left somewhat closer, maybe somewhat farther. I don't know. I haven't tested it that far, but I think that's pretty much the standard. And as you see right there, that's pretty far. I set again to reaction. Here we go. So, you know, by standard, that's pretty far, unless you press a button like that. We'll get into that. But generally, this is a tool that you utilize to kind of go back into neutral, right? Like from this distance, if you were to whiff a button or something, it's very easy to whiff punish you. So yeah, the main use for break hold, and this is one of the things that I actually like the most about the mechanic, is that, like I said, when you use it in the middle of the screen, you're mostly just using it to return to neutral. So you're not getting like a guaranteed setup or a guaranteed attack, nothing like that. You're just basically giving yourself another chance at the neutral, right? So, you know, if you play a slower character or if you're playing a bad matchup, I think that's particularly useful, because again, it's just like getting you out of there against a really hard to get situation, you know. So yeah, but you know, then again, at the wall, this of course changes a little bit. You know, because at the wall, the distance issue is basically non-existent. So, you know, I do with my back to the wall, now your back is to the wall, you know, and I have that +5 for free. So that's when it starts to get a little bit dirty. But again, that's a situation that, you know, it's kind of like the nature of the beast. If I'm pressuring you or whatever, and like I am aware that you have meter and sidestep and all that, then, you know, I have to be a little bit more careful. I need to carry my offense a little bit differently. And that's, you know, when it leads to those funny exchanges, like someone break holds, and then when your back's to the wall, you break hold again, and so on and so forth. Those exchanges they're pretty hype. But yeah, so break hold in and of itself, it's pretty good. I like it. I like it as an overall defensive mechanic. I feel that something like that was needed for DOA, you know, and this game is maybe not as gas heavy as DOA 5 by a percentage, but, you know, there are still some situations where you have to take really hard guesses, make really hard reads. So, you know, it's good to have something like that. And another thing is that, you know, regular holds, if you look at the frame data right there, they don't actually start at frame 0. That's an error right there. But because, you know, holdables, but they stay out for 18 frames, right? And they recover in 12. Break holds stay out for 22, and they recover in the same amount. So obviously this move stays out by 6 more frames. So oh no, what am I saying? 4. I can't do math apparently. But yeah, it stays out for 4 more active frames, and that's pretty huge. You know, in terms of active frames, like if it were startup or recovery, it wouldn't be as game changing, but because it is active frames, and that's pretty big. And I don't believe, I believe this is universal for characters. It would be crazy if some characters get more active frames. But yeah, so, you know, some people have been saying like, oh man, these stay out forever, and they actually do. They do stay out for an extended period of time compared to regular holds. So, you know, there's more of a window for you to fall into them. But, you know, break holds, I think it's a great mechanic. Again, you can use them to get out of fatal stuns and all that, situations that weren't possible before. Everything back turn, however, though, everything back turn is still guaranteed. There was a little bit of a fear when the game was coming out that, you know, you would be able to even get out of back turn situations. Thankfully you can't do that. So, you know, that's pretty good. But yeah, break holds pretty good. I think we can now jump into break blow, I guess the accompanying mechanic, you know, that uses up meters. So break hold is also pretty interesting. Break blow, not break hold. These goddamn names, dude. But yeah, so like break blow also has like a lot of utility built into it, I think. So, you know, by standard, this is +4 on block, and a lot of people, myself included, weren't actually like super down with this change, because, you know, it's like it's like when you charge power blows in DOA 5 and they were guard breaks like this, you don't have to charge. But, you know, I think now looking back at it, I think it's like fairly good, you know. A break blow in of itself, like raw, does, I think it's 50 damage, 80. So, you know, it's a pretty good chunk of damage. But, you know, you're spending all your meter, and if they do block it, like, it's not like you're immediately right in their face. If you jab, it's gonna whiff, unless you're at the wall, of course. But, you know, even now I just find myself, like, you know, if I'm fighting a defensive player, I just like jab into it, or like, you know, just poke him into it to kind of like test him. But that's being like very liberal with your meter. One other use that you can see here, and this is actually something that's pretty interesting. Let's go to here to other details. You see right there in the reach box, for example, it says that this move reaches a meter .60, right? And for example, it says that like what's a good, like, yeah, this, like for example 9p is 1.70, right? This is actually not true. For example, from this range, if I do 9p, that whiffs, right? But if I do, get this right, like right about here, right, I do 9p, it whiffs. If I do break blow, it hits. It has a lot of deceptive range, and I think that changes between characters, but yeah, this has a lot of deceptive range. Like the info box, the deep seal box right there is super wrong. Like, don't believe that. It extends the hitbox a lot farther, so this is actually like a really strong whiff punish tool. For example, like for wake up kicks, like you can just react from like all the way out here. What the hell? I deset it. Hold on. Make kicks, yes. For example. No, god damn it, not actions. God. I'm bad at the menus, guys. Maybe good at the game, but I'm terrible at the menus. Anyway, so you know, all the way from out here, like that's an easy whiff punish, right? Works for both low wake up kicks, it doesn't matter. Like you see it and you can just like react to it, right? Not just so much to like punish it immediately, but you know, you just like do it, and it's super easy. So as a whiff punish tool, it's actually pretty decent. It's actually pretty decent. Again, if you whiff punish something like that, like a wake up kick, that's 80 damage that you just get for free. So you know, there are smarter ways of using it than just like freaking like YOLO, just like get up, or I'm at disadvantage and I do it, you know. And then of course the other thing is that this is your main like extending combo mechanic. So you know, there was a lot of like talk and a lot of like confusion about this mechanic when it was first introduced, but yes, you can cancel the break blow. It's not a glitch like some people were saying before. I thought that was so funny. But you know, you cancel it and it puts you in a fatal stun. So as you know, you can only get out of those with break hold. That's all fine. So you of course get to either go for an extension of your stun, or you just to launch right away from it, you know. And then these are complemented by the new band mechanic, you know. That's also something that was introduced. So you know, you do like you're bound and then into it and then you loop it, you know. This opens up the combo potential immensely for this game. I mean, that's probably my favorite thing. You know me. But yeah, that's mainly what people are using it for now. And you know, it is fine for that, of course, but then there's the argument is like this uses 2 gauges versus a break hold which uses 1, you know. So for example, if I do like my combo or whatever, and then I do the cancel and then I go for the launch, but you break hold there, I used my meter and you possibly still have half of yours, right? So it's a pretty interesting mind game that is brought upon there. So yeah, I think break blow is pretty good, you know. It's like we were talking before, it's like it's not so much the power blow in the sense that like you can just store it and like hoard it in between rounds, but if you use your break blow once in a round, there's like I'd say like an 80 maybe 90% chance that you're not getting it again that round, right? Or the next even. So it's not as crazy as some people might think. Like you can do insane amounts of damage for one round, but it's from one round and one round only, right? So I think it's fairly more balanced than something like the power blow, for example, and you know, later much more the power launcher, which you got that every time, and if you did land it was like a guaranteed like 50-60% with every character. So that's crazy. But yeah, that's it for break blow. Again, pretty good. Nothing that I would particularly change, you know. The advantage, I still like it. I think it's fairly good. This is of course also a linear move. You can step it easily. Holdable as well, you know, it's mid punch. You can hold it regularly. You don't need to use break hold in neutral. But yeah. So I guess we've finally gotten to this point, huh? Time to talk about this boy right here. Time has come and so have I. So yeah. I mean, I think outside of like, I don't know, like the costume shit or whatever, this has probably been the most talked about thing in the community, like at least in like the intermediate to like competitive part of the scene. You know, it's all about the sidestep, and again, it's not all good. Majority of it, it's pretty bad, as you guys might be aware. So, you know, to get it out of the way, the big one, am I against or all for the sidestep? In my opinion, I'm all for it. There are a couple of things that I'm like, yes, maybe it should be changed, but you know, for the major part, I really love it. I think it's a really good mechanic, and it suffers from a few implementation issues, maybe, but it is something that I think the game needed. You know, something similar to like the break hold and all that, right? So, you know, as it has been equally talked about, I think it's, you know, just right to give it an equal analysis. So, you know, for starters, like every move out of the sidestep is 27 frames, right? And you can count it for like, I don't know, I guess you could say that this is like somewhere maybe like 12 frames at most. So yeah, this is an over 30 frame move on startup, right? So like a lot of people have been saying, you are absolutely 100% invincible doing this. This has high frames, you know, this 100% has high frames to linear moves, right? Every move that says right there non-tracking, it's gonna beat it out, right? I don't see the problem with this. Like, if the move is intended to not track, you know, to not go through the sidestep, then why would it? This was a big problem in DOA 5, for example. Like, we have Christy right here, and she could just like do this to you all day, right? And every single one of those mid punches would retrack if you were to sidestep in between, right? And this game, you can just be like, fuck that, I don't know why she's doing that, but you know, why is she doing that? What the fuck? Let's see. What the fuck? There we go. Like at any point I can just choose to, I don't know, that was weird. At any point you can just choose to, you know, sidestep and get rid of that entirely, right? So that works as intended. Like, I don't understand why people are like, it's going through my move, it's going through my strings, you know. It's supposed to do that. Again, like, it does have iframes. This is invincible. This is an invincible move. I've been making this analogy, this comparison to a lot of people as well. It's like, this is a DP. This is straight up a 2D game DP. This is an uppercut right here. This is a Shoryuken. Like, you know, people do it from wake up, like when they're at disadvantage. Like, it's a DP. It's straight up a DP. And you know, those types of mechanics aren't usually present in fighting games. There are a couple 3D games that, you know, where invincible moves have been introduced. But you know, this is like this is by definition is just straight up a DP, right? Range is pretty bad. Look at that, actually. But yeah, so you know, that's it for the actual evasive part of the move. It is intended as, like, I guess what some people would call a panic move, right? But beyond that, like right here, you see like the actual attack on hit does 30 damage. This is also universal. It's universal for all characters. All sidestep attacks do 30 damage, 30 points of damage, right? You know, by simple logic, just by simple math, by process of elimination. Like if I punish even with a non-optimal punish like that, I'm getting 52 damage, right? So at a standard, like the risk versus reward factor is not even in your favor. When you do this, like every time you have more to lose than you have to gain. And again, even related to like specific mechanics or matchups, for example, say I'm playing Brad and I'm playing against a Yane. Sorry, like I was saying, so say I'm playing Brad and I'm fighting against a Yane, right? In this particular matchup, if I do this to you, right, and you have the life lead, I've effectively given you the advantage in that particular situation, because you still have the life lead, and I just pushed you away 3 meters, and Ayana is just going to destroy me every single time in neutral, right, if I'm Brad. So like it would have been better, more sensible to try and take like I don't know, like a gas, or a brake hold or something like that, to actually get that out of the situation, instead of just using the panic move and then putting myself at maybe an even worse disadvantage. There's a lot of things that you have to account for, and it's like that's another part of I think the whole debacle, is that there's a very clear distinction to be made here, and a lot of people are not realizing is that there's a difference between the mechanic itself being good. Like, I'm not saying it's bad, it's really good, but there's a difference between the mechanic itself being good and there being other characters, some characters that are better at utilizing the mechanic than others, right? There's a very clear difference there. So in that particular situation, it's like, yeah, it would be beneficial to use it more so against other characters than others, or other matchups, right? So in general, that's kind of like the general vibe, I guess you could say. And then you get into like the actual punishes, of how you go about punishing the sidestep. So you have like just some characters, again, character specifics, like generally can still get his limbo stun, stand specific and everything, by using this, because it's a tracking move that causes that specific stun on a sidestep, so that's like generalized. And then tracking moves, of course, as well. And then you have your fatal rush. Your fatal rush also universally gives you that back turn situation, and you get like your free combo. It's really damaging, actually. Like, it's really damaging stuff, right? So you get to do that a lot there, in comparison to just getting hit by this once and just losing 30 points of damage, right? And yes, like for example, here at the wall, say I'm at the wall, I did, like, every character I do believe gets a follow-up combo at the wall from the sidestep attack, but again, it's all situational. Like, that's DOA, like, that's DOA, taking advantage of the environment and things changing related to the environment. That's just DOA. Again, that's nothing new to the sidestep, or it, like, enhancing those types of things. That's always been DOA. So again, it's something that a lot of people don't account for. And then yeah, you have those clear like counters, of course, like long time DOA mechanics as well, offensive folds, throws, all that will also beat the sidestep. There's a lot of counterplay involved. And even beyond that, something that I've also been talking about with a few people is that I like the sidestep in the sense that it makes people play differently, like out of their comfort zone, and kind of have a little more preservation and be a little more conservatory with their offense. And there's a really good article that talks about this from a BlazBlue player called Lord Knight, I believe, who basically wrote this whole article about offense in fighting games, right? So It talks about sometimes it doesn't matter, and and this is going again to the whole concept of like DPs and all that. Even if you have the advantage, even if you put the opponent in this situation, where they can't get out, or you'd be crazy to hit a button, you always have to account for that. You never have to take it for granted. You always need to have the DP, the defensive, the panic move mechanic in mind, and that is ultimately what is going to dictate and separate like the really good players from the good players in general, right? And for example, I can show you an example going into like this new replay mechanic here that is godlike, by the way. So say for example, I have Christy right here. I guess this is like a tutorial I guess you guys could use for like testing setups and all these things with the new replay mechanic. So 3PP with Christy is -5 on block, right? Completely safe. It's a pretty common thing for for Christy just to do this shit, and then oops, sorry, do a 3PP and then sidestep attack, right? That's fine. So we have that there. Go back to recording and record to 2. I'm gonna record her doing 3PP into a simple block, right? Just block. We go back, and then we set it to replay 1 and 2, right? So now she's gonna alternate between both options, and what I'm going to do here is that after each one I'm going to jab. I'm just gonna throw out a jab and block, right? So let's reset this. I throw out my jab. See, I have enough time to block, and if she blocks, I'm already putting something on her block, right? And this is just a minor example. At this point, it's just like a matter of me reacting, like if she stays there or if she does the sidestep attack, right? So in either situation, I have more than enough time to like react and do something about it, and this is just a minor example. Like there are various permutations of this, character related stuff, many things that you can do. And again, it's going to the concept of controlled offense. If I throw, for example, a 6P here, the sidestep attack is actually going to beat me, right? For example, it's going to beat me every time, and that's a common thing. Like I'm partial to that as well. To counter poke with just 6P everything, 11 frames, right? But you have to start thinking differently in this game. You can't just do that every time now. Like another smart option, just do P6P, right? I have 2 follow-ups from that, which you have to respect. If she blocks, then she's already committed to that, because I can just throw her if she stays blocking, things like that. So going to your character and really labbing in the matchups and situations where it would be most beneficial for the opponent to sidestep, that's what it's all about. That's the important part, in my opinion. And that's just a minor example. You can take many scenarios like that and just like set them up that way, right? So at this point I'm just like talking in circles, but the main idea is that the sidestep is good. It needs maybe a little bit of finer tuning in some areas, but I'm still honestly not sure. But as a general mechanic, for what it's intended to be, it's good. Like, it's really good. If you get tilted by it, if I do this to you and you get tilted by it and just start running at me, guns blazing, and you just keep getting quote unquote looped by it, then that's absolutely your problem, right? That is absolutely your fault. I can admit that myself. If I get hit by this somewhere in like my offense, when I'm doing this or whatever, like that's on me, right? Because I'm being frivolous with my offense, and that's, I think, that the hardest part of people have been having. The hardest thing people have had to adapt to, is that you can't play this game like DOA 5. At least not in its entirety. The basic, should I say this? Should I say this, you guys? the basic core values of DOA still apply to this game. They always will. But yeah, you still have to account for all these new mechanics, all this new stuff that you can do. And like I said, ultimately a lot of people are having trouble with that because, like I said in the previous Let's Talk, a lot of what I called built-in like pressure mechanics are no longer in the game, and that's related to like the ground game and all that. So people have a hard time adapting to that, to you just not being able to like stay in someone's face and just like pressure them and do this guard break into the setup, into the throw, into all this. You can no longer do that. You have to play the neutral a little bit more. Like, again, they did say that with DOA 6 specifically, they wanted to have like a heavier focus on the neutral, and that's exactly what they did. I don't understand why people are like mad about it or complaining about it. That was the intended purpose, for you to stay less time in the stun, guessing and doing all these things, and more on the neutral. That's exactly what the sidestep does, unless you're at the wall or whatever. But again, DOA specifics. So not accounting for like the environment and matchups, and character balance, like at a base level, as a mechanic on its own, the sidestep is good. It's good. So yeah, I mean, in closing thoughts, to just kind of resume everything that I just went on. Yeah, like the sidestep is good. People will have to adapt to it. I don't care what your argument is, or what you might have to say about that. That's what it is. You just have to adapt to it. There's no other way around it. Like mechanics like these have existed since the inception of fighting games. So that people are having to try and adapt to something foreign now, it's just natural that they would have these types of reactions. But it's good. Just learn how to control your offense a little bit more. Be a little more mindful. Just don't just fucking press buttons like crazy, because you're habilitated to it by the speed system or anything like that. No, be more mindful when you're pressuring someone, and you'll start to see the difference. And practice like the stuff that I showed you with the recording and all that. And that's like for the bases, like new mechanics on DOA 6. I haven't even talked like the mechanics that have been adjusted or changed. Like, real quick, I'll give you guys like a few, like a little tip here, I guess. And it's about like the whole stagger situation. Like the stagger mechanic is gone, but pretty much all moves have been revisioned to have their advantage like either reduced or like kept the same. It's all been like looked over, and this is a pretty cool, pretty fun exercise actually. So if you go back to DOA 5 and just like take note of your character's moves and like stuns, you'll see that the differences are there and they're consistent. For example, if I do like 3P here, right, gives him plus 33. I don't remember what it gave you overall in DOA 5, but I've done this. I've gone back and looked at every single one of Genly's moves in comparison and seen what advantage it gives you. And this is set to like, if you were to set the CPU to stagger in the slow setting, it would give you this plus 33, right? And this is the case for most of his stuns like this. They're all set to the slow stagger setting, right? If you were to go back to DOA 5, for example, 4K, this gives you a plus 17, and that is actually set to the fast stagger setting in DOA 5. If you were to set that to fast in DOA 5, it would give you that 17 frames, right? And then for another example, if you do APP, both of these, that plus 13 and plus 6, that is the exact same from DOA 5. This has not been changed. It gives you the exact same amount of advantage. And then, you know, a P6P on the other hand has been set to the fastest stagger setting in DOA 5. You guys remember, if you staggered this in DOA 5, you made it so no follow-ups are possible. Well, that's what they did for this game. So, you know, it's not so much that like staggering is gone, it's just that they've gone over each of the characters' moves and like revisioned like their advantage and what is sensible for that move to have in terms of advantage, right? So it's a pretty cool exercise to go back to DOA 5 and just kind of like check what your character's values, the frame data used to be, and like compare it to this game. You know, you can learn a lot of how like characters work in this game if you do that. But you know, that's just something like related to a mechanic that's been DOA forever. So yeah, I mean, you know, in closing, DOA 6 is amazing, and you guys should know it's amazing, and you guys should love the game, because it really is a good game. Like, it really is. Of course it has its rough spots, you know, there's a lot of stuff that needs polishing and you know, to be revisioned. But where we stand now, this is what I've been telling people, is like, you compare, I don't know, I think that DOA 6 right now is maybe slightly better than last round, or maybe last round is slightly better than DOA 6, but by a very small margin. But if I were to compare DOA 6 with DOA 5 vanilla and ultimate, like 6 is just so much fucking better. Like, it is night and day, right? So comparing this game to 2 iterations of the last one, and then it being as good as it is to the last iteration of the last game, you know, like, we just started. Again, like, we've had the game for not even a month, and it's already this solid. So imagine what it could become in the future, you know? So that's basically what I'm telling people right now, is that you can, no fighting game, and this is true, ask anybody, no fighting game on release has been perfect. There is no, yeah, there's no fighting game that has been perfect from the get-go. So, you know, as it stands now, DOA 6 is a really good product, and it's exciting to see how much better it could get, right? So that's what I've been telling people, you know. So again, in closing, you know, rambliest video ever, but it had to be done, you know. It's a little bit of an update. Again, like, the meta in general has changed quite a bit, you know. Just your quick launches, spacing is really good in this game. Spacing is super good, but you know, we still got a lot to learn. We still haven't had that much time with the game, you know. A lot of things will be discovered, changed, you know. So yeah, for now, this is going to be it. Again, if you guys have your opinions, and you know, you have something different to say to what I said in this video, if you sat through all of it, that is, and I would love to hear it in the comments and all that stuff. But yeah, I think this is going to be it for this video. So, you know, whenever we get an update, or you know, things change or whatever, we'll go back and look on how things used to be, and you know, we'll just be able to compare it at that point, if it was indeed better or worse the way it was, as time passes. But yeah, this is going to be it for now, guys. Again, thank you so much for watching, especially if you watch the entire video. It is highly appreciated, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.